Hello, everyone. Happy Friday and welcome to the Sabby Sab Show on FHL. We are continuing our generational series. And last Friday, we had a millennials panel. And tonight, we are going to have the Gen X panel. So welcome, everyone. If everyone can go around and introduce themselves, we'll start with Quaker Socialist.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sonia, also known as Quaker Socialist on several mediums. Nice to be here.
All right, cool. Jabari.
Hey, it's Jabari Morris, co-editor-in-chief of Real Progressives and Real Progress in Action. You can find me at Jad Morris on just about all social media.
Cool. Daryl?
Hey everybody, this is Daryl, aka Black in the Empire. You can find me on Twitter as Black in the Empire. Also, I have a YouTube channel that's going to be starting someday under the same name, Black in the Empire. And that's it. That's me.
All right. And Joy?
Joy Marie Mann, otherwise known as Savage Joy. You can find me at Savage Joy Marie 1. I have had a YouTube show for over 4 years, Savage Joy Marie Mann, and I finally just got on Rockfin last night, so please subscribe there.
All right, cool. War Deer Entertainment said, "What's up, old people?"
Hey, what you talking about, Willis?
Hey, I'm
What you talking about?
Oh man.
I'm not gonna say anything because Savvy was trying to put me in the Boomer show.
Oh, that's cold-blooded.
I was. Oh man. All right. So Gen X. So I've heard a lot from people saying that they feel like Gen X generation is forgotten because millennials and boomers are the largest generations that we have. How do you guys feel about that? I know Gen X is a smaller generation, but do you feel sometimes that your generation is forgotten about?
Well, anybody want to go first? I
I
guess
can-
I don't know. For me, I kind of look at us as almost like the second silent generation because I never hear anybody, in any social media or anything talking about Gen X. It's like it goes from Boomer and then it goes right down to the to the younger generation. So I guess maybe we are a little bit forgotten.
Jabari, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, we're sort of forgotten because we're like that sandwich generation. We're the ones who just got through raising the millennials, and now we got to go take care of the boomers at the same time. So we changed to 2 different sets of diapers at this point.
Well said. So I was asking this question to the millennials as well, and I got to ask you guys the same thing. What do you feel are some of the things that are said, about your generation that's actually you feel is not true or is not fair?
I think one of the things that's so frustrating is when our generation is talked about, which is rare, but when it's in magazine or like articles, you'll see a lot of Generation X people just aren't buying houses. Generation X people just aren't having babies. It's like we're fucking poor. Like it's just, we're expected to just be like, just kind of take after our parents and be able to work that one job and, everything's cool with one salary. So I think the disconnect of our age being able to still provide on that one salary. And I think a lot of people haven't woken up to the fact that it's not just millennials who struggle.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that too. The thing is that our generation, well, I'm not that far from being a boomer, but our generation is actually the generation that I would say where like neoliberalism got ramped up. You know what I mean? Because like for me, I was really young, just coming into adulthood under Reagan, and then Clinton came. And once they got rid of the union jobs and things like that, all of a sudden things started to change. No longer the pensions and everything started going away. So like I said, once we reached adulthood or really got into our I would say our earning years, that's when things really started getting taken away.
Let's get Sonia in.
Yeah, I think Daryl really speaks to my experience. I think we're both closer to the boomer side. And so I worked with the boomers, and they just never left their jobs. It's like, just leave. Let us have, let us like, have some crumbs from what you're doing. And I thought that was like a critical thing. I worked in the Boston area with the women's leaders, and, like you could barely get at the big girls table. And it's just like, they wanted people to follow the program. And that was really what they wanted. And that was really my biggest issue professionally, is like, well, when are we ever going to be able to impact the agenda? When are we going to be able to do the work and start being able to like have them slightly step back? And they just they never left. And that was, I think, the biggest issue that I was facing in my career in the political in this political field. But I think that was my biggest issue that was important to me.
Now, in reference to something Savage Joy said, how many of you on the panel have children? Okay.
Yeah, I have two. Yeah.
Two.
Two. Okay.
I can't afford it anymore.
Yeah, I'm a millennial and I have none, and my parents are boomers, and my parents both came from large families. How many of you came from large families? Jabari?
Humongous.
Well, I'm an only child, so I can't.
Yeah. My family is so large that when my cousins start doing family trees, it pretty much connects everything. One of my cousins actually guesstimated on one side of my family that that the guy we traced back to, Albert Terrell, he probably has over 100,000 descendants, possibly.
So that was one of the things that did change, I think. Like the size of families did shrink. A lot of that has to do with the economy, more women going into the workforce. I think that has an effect on this as well. What do you think? When I was talking to millennials, I'm noticing you guys already have some similarities, because some of the things they were saying, same thing, can't buy a house or can't like start a family, like Savage Joy was saying. Savage Joy, you're on the younger end of Gen X. And I wonder if that has something to do with it too.
I mean, it does. Now, that I'm 85% blind starting last year, I couldn't work anymore. So unfortunately, I lost my job, and that changed things. But when I first got let go because of going blind, I went to unemployment. And there was a gentleman in there who was applying. You have to take these classes, to like prove that you're looking for a job, essentially. And there was a gentleman in that class who was 72 years old, who still needed to work. And he was on unemployment. And I was like, so, not to be invasive, but you are still looking for work? And he said, yeah, I have to. And like, this is our generation. Like, this is going to happen hands down with everyone. We're going to see, Social Security will keep getting raised as far as in age. You know, when I was growing up, retirement was 62. That now it's 65. You know, it's, you know, our generation no longer has like the same benefits that our parents did. Be it, you know, any kind of severances for when you retire, you know, stocks, things like that. They've done away with all that. Like my dad is 80. He was a product manager at Mack Trucks for 45 years. And I'm like, I don't even know what half of this stuff you're saying you had is. Like, I have no idea what that is. I even worked for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for years. So even working for the state, we didn't get any, you know, we literally had to buy our own pens and paper. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, our generation is, you know, it is kind of close to millennial in that regard. Like, we, you know, we are looking at not the brightest future when it comes to jobs and monetarily.
I know for me, like I have like 2 young adult kids, and I need to get them. I have to like slingshot them as far as they can. Which one wants to work in social justice, and I'm like, well, all right, what's the other one gonna do? You know? And oh, God love them, but you know, like, because I worry about being a complete anchor to their future, because like I have got nothing. I believe in solidarity and community, and I was raised in an anarchist community and family, so I'm used to relying on everybody. So my entire existence is based off of that. But if the kids are going to have almost nothing, then we'll just kind of be on a little raft trying to survive.
And your kids are millennials, right?
I think my kids are Zoomers. I think they're 20 and 22. I think that's Zoomer.
Do you already like notice the difference between like what your generation had and what they have to go through?
Yeah, they have nothing. Like, you know, my son, the older one, got a college degree in public health. He, like, what kind of career is that? Like, especially now, it's really been devastated. And so what can he do that's not funded? He wants to really just work in the community, which is fantastic. But, you know, that's gonna, in our frame of mind, that's part of solidarity. So at least you're going to be useful to our community, which is good. It's, you know, it's shifting how you're supposed to be gearing yourself. And so that's great. So I have to sometimes stop chasing what we're supposed to be doing and be like, no, we're supposed to be gearing our skills so that we can be good to our community and be effective. So I have to change the way I say things.
How many of you had to deal with student loans?
Yeah, I had student loans.
Yeah. How many of you remember 2008, the housing crisis? What was that like for you?
Well, for me, it really didn't matter because I didn't have a home and haven't been that close to having a house. But I did see the disaster around, and then when you see shows like The Con, where you actually get to see where they just basically taught the economy just to make the rich people richer and just to leave us not even crumbs. Like the crumbs literally fell down on the table, off the table, and went to the dogs. So in a lot of ways, I feel that we got the short end. We get the short end of the stick from both ends. So you can almost call us the blame me generation. The older folks blame us for oh, why y'all didn't lift yourselves up by the bootstraps. Then the millennials sometimes look at you like, oh, y'all know, what do y'all know about anything? Y'all still sticking to those old things. So it's like we're the generation that nobody likes.
Oh, Daryl.
Oh, well, for me, for 2008, I was actually homeless in 2008. So I mean, for me, I mean, you know, any type of crisis didn't really matter. I was kind of going through my own crisis at that time, but I did, of course, notice especially, I mean, I've always kind of lived, after I got into the service, I've always been kind of like in Black communities. So I noticed, I mean, a lot of Black homeowners losing their homes, you know, so it was really devastating at that time.
Julie said something interesting in the chat. She said, most Xers I know, myself included, are still paying student loans and now looking at helping their kids with college. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
I actually worked, when I said I worked for the state Commonwealth, that was actually through federal student loans. And I did that for several years. Now, the only reason why I didn't have student loans is because I worked full-time while going to college full-time because I was determined not to take out loans. How I did it, I don't freaking know, but I would work 8 to 5 and then go to class 6 to 10 and then spend the weekends writing my papers, things like that. I look back and I'm like, I don't know how I did it, but yeah, so I worked for federal student loans for over 3 years. I have heard so much trauma. Because I worked on the customer service end. So I took thousands of phone calls of exactly what this viewer just asked. I had people just crying hysterically. I'm never going to pay this back. I've already used up my deferments and forbearances. I have no money. It's accruing interest that capitalizes every single month. I now am pregnant and how do I even, think about college for them one day? And then you have parents calling, saying, trying to advocate for their children, and you're like, I know, but that's, and I'd go home crying like every day, just feeling helpless. I wanted to help them so bad, but the system is so jacked up. Like I would see people who absolutely would take $20,000 out in loans. And by the time they graduate, it's over $60,000. Saw it all the time. Is every month when I was working there, the interest was 6.9. Every month it capitalizes. And what would happen is anytime they would put money, they would always put it on the principal. And they shouldn't have. They should have been paying the interest so that it wouldn't keep capitalizing. But a lot of people didn't explain these things. And it was just heartbreaking. Like I even saw something on the news the other day. One of the things that I would promote and take applications for is the student loan forgiveness, which is you work 10 years in the community, be it doctor, lawyer, librarian. I mean, as long as you work in the community, you serve somehow, you pay your loans 10 years in a row, whatever's left is forgiven. Now, if you miss one payment, you have to start all over. Done.
Yeah, there's so many loopholes in that. It's just crazy.
It was messed up.
I had a guy who paid for 8.5 years, had to start all over.
Yeah, there was a big story about that a couple of years ago. I know for me, I joined the Peace Corps thinking that would like forgive some of my loans, and I got out, and they're like, "Oh no, we do. You just didn't get the type of loan that we forgive. You have like, I think I got like $400 forgiven, and I had 30,000, and it was just like, I mean, I got a lot out of Peace Corps, so that was good, but had hoped that there would be some financial benefit as well.
I know for me, I was lucky. I mean, I was in the military, so part of my college was paid for, and now I'm a disabled vet, so my college loans were forgiven, but I still have to pay my wife's student loans, and now my oldest son, who's 20, now he's going to college now, so we're trying to figure out. I'm trying my hardest to say, please, I can't. I don't want you starting your life, in $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in debt. He got into NYU, but NYU was so expensive, so right now he's going to Morgan State here in Baltimore because we could pretty much almost, it's almost free. with with our income and everything like that. So I hate to tell them don't go to NYU, because I don't want you to start your life that way, But in my mind, I'm saying, listen, you're better off just staying at Morgan State. You can pretty much get out of there with no debt, and start your life that way.
Yeah, my older son, I encouraged him not to go to college. Like what's the point? You don't have to. There are careers you can totally do. You can go into plumbing, you can be an electrician, you can do anything in the trades. And there's the union, there's so much work that you could be doing. And his dad, who's like, from overseas, was like, you will go to college. so that was they both know that they have to. The younger one, because of his life experiences, is able to qualify for basically tuition free, because he's both because of our family income, and then also just having had such a hard time from life experiences that has helped him. But the college debt is crazy. It's crazy because you won't earn anything. You will never earn anything to be able to pay it off. You just won't. You're just shackled to the desk now, or you're shackled to whatever job you're going to be doing, because you can't ever stop. You can't pay it up.
No, it's true.
Yeah, I actually wrote 2 articles about this, about just this general malaise, especially that as Gen Xers feel. One I wrote about 5 years ago was the American Dream, the lie that shackles us, and then I wrote another one back in the beginning of the year called America Was Founded on a Lie. Yeah. So when you look at the comparison between the two, they both have the same basic thesis statement that everything that we know that they untold us is an absolute lie, and that it's the reason why so many people are suffering.
I'm curious. Hold on one second. I got a little bit of an echo. Okay. What would you say are the issues that are most important to you, like as a Gen X, and why?
Medicare for all. But actually, that's even a compromise. We actually need an American NHS.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Daryl?
For me, I guess it would be free college because because I have a kid in college now, and I have a 13-year-old also that I'm wondering about what's going to happen if he does decide that he wants to go to college. For me, I guess also prison reform, because like I said, I grew up. I still have friends that are in prison from the crime bill. For possession and 3 strikes,
Thanks, Joe.
So that's important. So like you said, I know everybody knows I'm no Joe Biden fan whatsoever.
And he's also why we can't have our loans forgiven or bankrupted.
It's which is sad, because all it takes is for either him or the educational commissioner to sign their name and the debt's gone.
Yeah.
The law's already been passed a long time ago. They can forgive it however much, whenever they feel like. It's not like the federal government needs the revenue from us. No.
That's very true. Savage Joy, what's the most important issue to you?
To me, Medicare for all, without question. I'm sure that's no surprise. To me, that is the all-encompassing, animal. That is, you have Medicare for all, or like Jabari said, the equivalent of an NHS. You now can help homeless people. You now can help women. You now can help people who are being incarcerated. You now can help people who can no longer get a certain kind of job. It's related to so much. Now people can pay their rent easier because they don't have all those doctor bills. Like, now they can actually go to the doctor and take care of their health and work more if they need to. And it's just relative to absolutely everything. But also, I wanted to touch on, you guys sparked something else in my mind that I thought of, so many boomers. Well, I mean, my dad's 80. I don't know if that's a boomer, like older than a boomer. I'm not sure. I'm
I
not
think
sure what
80 might be
That
silent
might be
generation.
silent, right?
that's funny. But he's not silent whatsoever. But I think, looking at him, and as I said, he worked as a product manager at Mack Trucks for 45 years. He did horribly in school, and he never went to college a day in his life. And a lot of boomers or silent generation, they're like, get a job.
Yep.
What? Like, and then, people say, oh, people work at McDonald's and stuff. Well, first of all, that's a hard ass job. Second of all, like, when you were around, you didn't need college. You didn't need to, take all these tests in order to even get an interview. You didn't need, you don't have to check a box because you were arrested for cannabis 10 years ago. I mean, there's so many things stacked up against people, especially black and brown people. And the older generations really don't understand just how much more difficult it is compared to when they were growing up and found a job. Like, my dad literally started as a clerk for Mack Trucks and made it up to product manager in like 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
It doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't.
Like, do I get a job? Okay.
No. Yeah, well, it's like my parents didn't have to go to college either. They didn't go to college. They have no student loan debt, and they have they were able to have a middle class life.
Yeah.
And for my generation, well, I'm a millennial, but I feel like for my generation, it was ingrained in us that we needed to go to college in order to have the same things that like my parents had. Have any of you like spoken to your parents about like some of the struggles like your generation has had?
Wow. Yes. I talk to my dad about it all the time, and it's just recently, maybe in the last year or two, he's starting to understand how difficult it is. Like most of my siblings, they actually, when they finished their degrees, I started college, but I didn't finish, and so a lot of times I got looked at as the black sheep of the ones who weren't in criminal activities. So it's just really difficult. And like Joe was talking about, just with Medicare for all, how it opens up everything. But Father Kaboob, he always talks about the layer cake. Not only you have the Medicare for all, you also have the Green New Deal, have the job guarantee. And these things all work together. He calls it the layer cake. And those things will help our generation out immensely, because we're the ones who got squeezed from both sides. We got squeezed by the .com bubble at the beginning, and then when we start to try to get in the houses, we got squeezed by the housing crisis, and then now we're getting squeezed by everything else that's going on. So it's just like, which way do we go?
Anyone else spoke to your parents about?
For me, I don't know. For me, when I grew up, I mean, we were in the age of, like, for my parents, the only thing that they told me was, don't worry, you get a city. For them, everything was get a city job. You get a city job, you get a job with the government, and that way you get, you can get benefits, and you can join a union, and you'll get a pension. But even at that time, even at my time, it wasn't as easy as that for me. Like I said, I wound up joining the military. But because for me, that was kind of the only way I could see out, but which I regret today. But anyway, we won't get into that. But as far as speaking to them about maybe like the differences between our generation and their generation, I don't even think that they really I don't even think they would really understand the difference. To them, things were still the same, because I guess, in their generation, it was that simple for them. For me, I guess maybe I really didn't want to go through that path. I kind of was dreaming at the time for something better. But I guess that's about it with that.
You can almost say Will Smith was 100% correct when he said parents don't understand.
My dad was similar to Daryl's parents, where get a government job. My dad got a tick, like he had a spasm because of his government job, and he still told us to do it because he was a social worker under the gag rule, which means you can't talk to kids. He was a social worker for juvenile delinquents, and so it's what they would call and he couldn't talk to them about family planning or comprehensive health or anything. So he was under so much stress that he ended up with a lifelong spasm from it. And yet he still told me to go into government. And yes, I went into government. And yes, it's trauma causing. It's a terrible thing to do.
Joy.
But let's be honest, every job is trauma causing at this point.
At this point, it's honestly.
Joy.
It's interesting because ever since I stopped being able to work last year, because of losing my sight, I do kind of miss it. Like, I'm not going to lie, but I worked in healthcare for over a decade, and there were, it was rewarding in the respect that I did, because I took care of disabled and elderly people on Medicare. So I would help them get their bills paid, and I would kind of pay them regardless. But hopefully this isn't, being watched by anyone who didn't get me in trouble. But so it had some rewarding parts to it. As far as, trying to talk to my parents, I am working with an agency right now who is trying to find me a job to, find something that will give me blind accessibility and kind of work with me doing a few days a week at a job. And, they're kind of like not understanding that, like, you can't just apply somewhere and assume they're going to accommodate for you. That's not really how jobs work. And it's the same kind of mindset. Like, maybe if that happened 40 years ago, they'd be like, oh my God, that's awful. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Here, we'll get you a special computer, a special keyboard, and stuff like that. But that's like not exactly the way it works. So it's the same kind of mindset. But I don't know if there's any way we can explain to them, like truly explain to them that this is how it is now.
He who feels it knows it.
Yeah. I think that when you guys mentioned the job market, I just thought about something, the applicant tracking system, which my parents did not have to go through. That became a thing later on. And that actually hurts a lot of people from getting jobs, because somewhere along the line, HR decided that instead of going through all these resumes, why don't we just have this electronic system that will pick up keywords on the resume and the cover letter? And by the way, cover letters are a waste of time. And then we'll pick those people to bring them in for interviews. The problem is it creates more work for the applicant. You constantly have to create new resumes depending on the position that you're applying for. And then on top of that, like, it causes you to miss and lose out on good talent.
And credit scores are inherently racist.
Yeah.
Why do you need to know credit scores to apply for a job? It's none of your damn business. Maybe your credit sucks and that's why you're getting a job, to try and help your credit. Like, it's incredible.
And the earlier comment about the pretests, like, it took me forever to even get into assistant manager jobs in retail because of the pretest, because I always said they ask you about stealing and things like that. And I'm like, people don't need to go to jail for, like, stealing to survive. And they're like, gone.
Yeah, that's it, right?
So finally, I had to take some workshop or something that would teach me how to make it through the pretest, because I was like, I would answer all of the wrong way.
Yeah.
You can't tell the truth on Pretest. You have to say what they want to hear.
Oh my gosh, you can't even moderate it. It is, you need to send them to jail. And by the way, like, I'm an abolitionist, so like I want it all abolished and I want Julius Jones free. So it all needs to go. And apparently you can't put that on the pretests.
Yeah, Bill just said something, and I want to point this out as well. If you're stuck on blaming a single generation, you are not seeing the actual problem. And that's part of the reason why. Oh, hold on, I have an echo. Okay. That's let me mute. That's part of the reason why. I don't know who it is. Hold on, let me mute everybody. Hello? Okay. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do this panel series, because I've heard this for a long time. People in my generation, millennials, blame boomers. Gen X blame boomers. Actually, look, I've heard everybody blame boomers. I'm just going to be honest, but we have to ask ourselves what changed over time. And I think the economy has a lot to do with it. And I think capitalism has a lot to do with it. And I want to get you guys' take on that.
Yes, you're 100% right. When you look at the time that the boomers came in the the economic platform or whatever, it was in like the late 50s. So you're looking at the generation that had the most, it was probably like the most best economic times, where you could support a whole household on one income. I'm talking about like house, car, maybe even 2 cars, 3, 4 kids on one income. So they grew up during those times, and they don't see that, the times have changed, and now that's basically impossible to even have with 2 incomes to have 4 children, because it's so hard. Because things have changed so much, like all the things we talked about. What you gotta get a college education. You gotta stay away from trouble. You gotta have this, and then now with advertising, so everybody got to have the newest iPhone or the newest computer, the newest car, and these things are just siphoning money all the way from our generation. And then all the boomers do is like, look, you should have pulled yourself up by the bootstraps. You should have heard me. You should have listened to me, youngie.
Maybe sometimes like they may not understand that there are things that Gen X, had to pay for that they didn't have to pay for. Like when you think about like technology, I mean, like you pretty much have to have a computer. Yep. Or an iPad or something like that. You have to have those things, and those things aren't cheap. Whereas like when my parents were growing up, they didn't have to have a computer.
I was just thinking about, okay, go ahead. I was just going to say, I was just thinking about how much times have changed over the years, because I can remember when I was growing up, the government would at least pretend, that they wanted to, they said, listen, everybody want to try to lift everybody up into the middle class. They used to say that when I was young. I used to hear the politicians say that. Now they don't even pretend that they want everybody to be in the middle class anymore. Yeah. You got the Democrats now; they're running around saying, "Hey, we're going to try to lift half the kids out of poverty." I mean, the ball is just. I mean, it just moves so far. It's just crazy to me.
Hey, Savvy, somebody made a really good comment. It says you also P. Walker. Can you get that comment on screen about you out? Yes. Now this is the big problem. Class. When you break things down by class, there's a guy who's on Twitter, Roger Malcolm Mitchell. He has his own website called mythfighter.com, and he always talks about the gap, and that gap being the big issue. Like when you basically, when you look at every economic strategy, you got the homeless, you got the squalid poor, you got the working class poor, you got the working middle class, you got that, the 2 or 3 people left in the regular middle class, then you got the upper middle class, then you got the high class, then you got the millionaires and billionaires and stuff like that. Every group, when you go along, if you're ahead of the bottom group, you keep wanting to push people down and pull the people above you to your level at the same time. So what happens is it keeps pushing everybody into creating the underclass, and that's what we're seeing now. We look at veterans such as my brother up here, who spent some time homeless, and think about how many people walk past veterans every day and look down on them, not understanding what they gave for everybody just to be spit upon.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is true. Let me get rid of this really quick. That's a good point. People keep bringing up neoliberalism. And so this was interesting too, because This is Revolution podcast. They also said something similar about this too, that when neoliberalism came about, that was when like Black people, like the Black communities went away from like the teachings of like Malcolm X and like Martin Luther King, because they were both anti-capitalist, moved away from that and moved towards Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, the neoliberalism. And I want to hear from you guys. What do you think that has to do with your generation? Do you feel like you were kind of taken in by that too? And what pushed you further left?
Yes, I definitely was. 'Cause I know my dad, he used to be a solid, I would call liberal, who registered Republican just to vote out the crappiest of the crappy Republicans. So, but his idea of getting all sides of the story now is listening to Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN, thinking that covers all sides. Not understand that because of neoliberalism, the only sides they're all covering is the capitalist side. And that's basically looking at us as consumption units. And if we don't have enough money to consume, they throw us in the trash can. Simple as that.
Savage Joy?
I think, I've met, especially through Bernard's movement, I've met so many incredible boomers who are just like, you know what, F my generation, we could have helped this, climate change especially, we could have done more. But I will say they did not have a fraction of the information we have now. Like there was no interwebs or anything when they were like, trying to learn about things. This was like, you had one news station, that was it. That's all you knew was what they said. So we have a responsibility as the first generation who, really has accessibility to learn and get educated with hopefully the correct things. So I feel honestly, like as far as boomers go, I do understand when they complain they get a bad rep. However, I think it's very important that they listen to us, who is the next generation down, and try to understand where we're coming from. Because no, we can't fault you for how you existed. That was your life. I'm glad it was easier. Good for you. That's awesome. Now you should learn from what we are going through and take from that and join us as we try to make things better for our generation and the millennials and the Zoomers and what have you.
I think from my perspective, because my grandparents were on my dad's side, very, very poor, active socialists, if not communists. Like they were very, very active. They fought the union. They organized all the time. And my other side, they were more white collar, Scandinavian, so had better opportunities. But communism and socialism was everywhere. It was known, and I believe people were giving up on the ideas that were available, and they were not supporting their neighbors. And they would be like, "Oh, that's a nice neighbor, got a little kooky ideas, but everybody was welcome at the picnic." But then let anybody start pivoting the narrative, and then all of a sudden no one looks out for you. No one is watching to make sure that you had a little bit of a different opinion, but they were willing to sacrifice them. Like I'm in Minnesota, it was the norm to have workers fighting for rights, and they just slowly let it all go because they wanted to be like comfortable. So I do charge them with having known the information and then sacrificed it for some, you know, comforts that they were wanting. So I do charge them a bit more. I personally kind of consider myself a generation trader because I dedicate all of my time to the Zoomers. Like everything is going to be for them.
Daryl?
Your
I
family
guess
sounds
for me, you know,
awesome, but
I grew up in like the typical, you know, black Democrat family, you know, the Black Baptist Democrat family. So I mean, if we went back to like the times of, you know, Malcolm and MLK, it's almost like I could see the change going from that kind of thinking to when Obama came, to where, well, it's like everything changed, you know. Even though I mean, my family was going to always vote Democrat. I can't get them to stop voting Democrat now, you know. What Savage Joy was saying was true too, because I think about that a lot. You know, we talk a lot about the boomers, you know, and a lot of them really didn't have access to information like we have now. And sometimes I think even my generation, I guess, like, a lot of people that I'm with, you know, they still you know, love the Democrats. But I feel like my you know, like our generation does have a responsibility because, you know, we have some more like life experiences, and we also have access to the same information that the younger generations have.
I agree. Social media for your generation, actually anyone under boomers actually, do you feel that social media helped educate you more about politics, or do you feel that social media hinders that in a way?
I think it's vastly helped. Growing up, like I said, my dad was a moderate, you know, liberal, and every year that I get along, I become more and more left. And well, actually, every second, basically. So I definitely see the import. I think social media, what it did is it gives you the opportunity to connect with people in situations different than yours. Before, you know, we was all off in our little silos, you know, like generation, like the boomers, they grew up where they live half their life maybe in one city, and then they ain't go traveling until later. And when they travel, all they did is travel to tourist destinations, so they didn't get to see real world stuff. So now we're growing up in real world stuff. We live the real world stuff, and now we're able to share it with others, so we can each one teach one, so they can learn more about each other, so we can actually have some empathy and work together to have better things.
I've learned so much from Jabari, like the I think 2 shows with RJ.
No, one with RJ
Just
and
one.
one with JB.
I just watched it many times then. I haven't memorized yet. That's my goal, is to memorize all the videos of Jabari. But and I'm looking forward to Daryl's show. So that's gonna be let us know when it's not started, right?
No.
No. I know I've been learning a lot from you know, I'm a huge fan of Hampton Leftists because we're talking about the topics in the chat. We're listening to the podcast. We're engaging in such a vibrant way with our information and with our community. It's an amazing process, and I've found that this particular group of people to be so compassionate and generous with the information, you'll get snapbacked, but it's in a way that is bringing you forward together. I really appreciated it.
Daryl, Mr. Black in the Empire, how do you feel about social media and politics?
Well, I love being on social media, but you know, for me, you know, my like a kind of awakening started, you know, before I was even thinking about being on social media. Social media was kind of a new thing to me, like maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago. But you know, I kind of, my time in the military kind of woke me up, you know, about what the country was really about. You know, it woke me up to the fact that, you know, we're not saviors to the world. and what was really happening. And then when I got out, during the time that Clinton was in office, I went back to my projects. I thought things might be better, and things were worse, under the Democrats. That's when I kind of really started searching for myself. Then, you come back home and you're wondering why there are no black men left in your community, and but social media for me has been it's kind of been a blessing, because even though I saw those things at that time, and I learned at that time, that the Democrats are not the friend of the black community, I really didn't have the ability to really kind of like go down the rabbit holes to find out exactly what was happening. So for me, social media has really been a blessing, because, I got to learn a lot, because, if you want to do your own research, you can learn a whole lot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Savage Joy.
I mean, for me, social media absolutely changed my life. Without question, I wouldn't have found out who Bernard Sanders was, and, started campaigning for the first time, and started a show, and started being an activist, and started organizing, and like my whole life would be different. And plus, I mean, all of the incredible people I've met over the past 6 years. I mean, I can't even imagine my life without some of these people. And they've become, to people who aren't online or social media, it's like very weird to them to say, my friend, and like you've never met them in person, but they are your friend, like you are ride or die, and you love them. There is a community, and there is something so inherently beautiful with so many people in the movement who you meet. And I never would have met, I mean, I'm in Pennsylvania. People like you guys don't grow here. Like, I don't have any fun people really. So the interwebs comes in, and I'm like, I get to meet people from all over the world. And I get to learn things. And also on the same point, that's why, and I say this to millennials all the time, they are so fortunate that they are growing up in a time when things are very political. Because I'm not proud of the fact that I was 36 when I woke up. I am not proud of that. 36 years old, always, yay, Democrats, blue is good, red's bad. Obama, yes, the best ever. And then when I was 36, I had this rude awakening. And now I've gone more left like every single day. But without that, things would have, I wouldn't be the same person. I wouldn't. So when I go to protests or organize protests, and I see people with their kids there, it is like the greatest thing to me. I just always thank them, because that is so freaking awesome. And that is how change happens.
Awesome. Nick, thanks so much for the super chat. Match elder son with care, can't wait funds. Match people with artists/contributors, then labor. Forbid gentrification like parties, then savor once. Thanks so much for the super chat. I have one more question for you guys. Considering everything that you have gone through, your generation has gone through, what advice would you give to younger generations?
Fight like the lives depend on it, because it does. That means each one needs to teach one. That means that there has to be solidarity across all kind of different demographics. Don't get caught up into it poll. It poll destroys movements. Don't sympathize with the oppressor.
Yeah.
Sonia?
I was gonna kind of say something similar. Like, I guess the advice I would give is, I guess it would be to unify. I mean, one of the main reasons why we're in the position, and I feel like it's going to be hard for us to get out of the position we're in now, is because somehow, even though everyone knows that generally the ruling class keeps control through divide and conquer, but we always seem to fall for every trick that they have to get us to stay divided. So, I mean, I guess that would be my advice. And also we're going to have to kind of come to grips with the fact that we're not going to vote our way out of this. We're going to have to, you know, kind of fight our way through from the outside. I mean, the only way we're going to get anything done electorally is if it is forced. You know what I mean? So, you know, nobody's going to save you. Unfortunately, Bernie Sanders and the squad is not going to save you. We're going to have to keep pressure. I mean, as much pressure as we can. We're going to have to strike. We're going to have protests. We're going to have to, you know, stay unified as a working class.
Yep. Shout out to Mad Okalot God 81 for the super chat. Time banks plus tool libraries equals DIY job programs. Maybe productive, social, and practical potential. See if there is a time bank. I can't talk today. A time bank or tool library near you. Thanks so much for the super chat. And also shout out to Frank. Thanks for the super chat. I'm a boomer. Blame us. We have let down the last 2 generations. Hashtag free live. Please share to hashtag free live. Thanks so much for the super chat, Frank. Sonia?
I think both Daryl and Jabari really spoke to the things that are my priorities. So I would only like add, learn a lot about mutual aid. Mutual aid is so much more than what I see a lot on Twitter, which I consider that cash sharing. Mutual aid is so much more and more deeper, and it's a relationship building, and we're going to need our relationships, as you know, as Joy was saying. And I know in FHL, like, our relationships are really crucial, and today shows like what we did when we came together. Like, within moments of us finding out of Liv's arrest, we were like jumping into a chat. We were, you know, like talking and sharing and researching. It was amazing, and it just continued throughout the day. And that's what that means. And I would like also say, like, there's the solidarity economy, which is more than mutual aid, and so there's a lot to learn. And so I think that we really need to do our each one teach one. Take all of the classes and listen to you know, Black in the Empire show and Savage Joy. Like, all of you have great shows, so I just continue to enforce that. And then also I would say transformative justice is crucial to our abilities to have our relationships, and it's not difficult, but it does require learning and sharing and practicing. And you can do it as simple as like what I do with in my local community. We have a discussion group every month, and we've been available to our neighbors so that if neighbors need it, we are available to respond to their crises. So recently had somebody was doing it was homophobic and anti-Semitic graffiti, and we were there to support them and figure out how would they like to address this with that teenager, and just discuss some options. So it's a service for our community. It's for our own healing as well.
Thanks so much for the super chat, Susie. Love all you guys. FHL is the best step towards changing all this crap that I've seen so far. Thanks so much for the super chat. And last but not least, Joy.
I think, you know, this sounds so trite. It's nothing profound whatsoever, but something I think that our country as a whole is lacking so much is empathy. I think that at this time, we are absolutely watching eugenics of the poor. We are watching people suffering in our lifetime so much more than we've ever seen as a whole. And essentially, we need to have empathy for anyone who's going through anything they're dealing with right now. Who cares if it happened to you? That is not relevant. I mean, it's relevant, but it shouldn't supersede the fact that you end up caring about someone enough to tell them they shouldn't suffer. So when it comes to, you know, are you registered as a Democrat or whatever? Who cares? If someone is hurting, it is our jobs as humans, as humanity, we need to help one another. We need to take care of them. When I want to help people and when I share their mutual aid posts, do I ask them, what's your political stance? I don't give a shit. You need food, you need medical care, hell yeah, I'm going to share your post. So just be cognizant of empathy. That's just, to me, that is the all encompassing.
Well said. Guys, thanks so much for coming on. This has been a great discussion. I'm enjoying hearing from all different generations. I'm going to try to get the Gen Z generation next. So if you are watching and you are Gen Z and you are interested, DM me and we can go from there. I'm going to get to boomers eventually. I'm trying to save them for last because I already know, and I would need help with the silent generation because I haven't been able to find people for that. So if you know someone that you recommend, DM me, let me know. But guys, thanks so much for coming on. And if you want to support what we do at FHL, you can do so on Ko-fi. It's scrolling across the bottom of the screen, kofi.com/FHL network. So you can see it at the bottom there. If you want to see more Sabby, I'll be back at 7:30 on my channel on Sabby Sabs. Steve Grumbine's coming on along with Luke Parcher.
Who?
And
Oh,
we're
my.
going to break down, or actually they're going to do this because they know more about this than me. They're going to break down this whole so-called debt ceiling through MMT. And we're going to talk about all the strikes that are going on. Because it's
Amazing.
And
all
you get to
connected.
hear, you get to hear Sabby's music.
Oh,
Nice. It's good music.
Hey.
Good music.
Yeah.
oh, man, it gets stuck in my head too. Other than that, guys, have a good night. Keep up the fight.
Thank you.